Jeff Peterson from Heartland Farm Partners is our market analyst this week. The first rating of this year's soybean crop shows 69% is in good to excellent condition. 74% of corn is listed in the best two categories. On Wednesday, the USDA released its latest estimates on U.S. production in 2015, as well as beginning and ending stocks. Corn and soybean outputs for this harvest were left unchanged. For 2015-2016, corn beginning and ending stocks were raised. Soybean beginning and ending stocks were lowered. We talked about the numbers and the market's reaction to them with Jeff Friday morning. Give me your overall thoughts on Wednesday's numbers, Jeff.
You know, as the crop report came out overall, it was about as we expected. It probably a little bit tighter on the soybean carryout. So if we kind of walk through for the 2014 crop on corn, they came in at 1.86 or 1.876 billion bushels of corn. That actually was up about 25 million bushels from the previous month, and that all came because they did reduce it from the ethanol demand side. They reduced ethanol demand. That carried right into the 2015 carryout. And that came in at 1.771 billion, and that also was a 25 million bushel increase. So those numbers carried right through, Jeff. So I don't think there was any surprises there. The ethanol is a little bit of a surprise, but overall it's still within what the expectations were.
How did markets react?
You know what, the markets, they went ahead and put some pressure on. Yeah. We overall had an uptrend coming into this report. Even though we still got a downtrend going on in the market, we had an uptrend coming into the report. And once they didn't see any bullish surprises, they went ahead and started selling. The interesting one was soybeans, though, Jeff. Over on the soybean carryout, 330 million bushels of carryout. They continue to tighten that up. That's a 20 million bushel decrease from what we saw last month. 10 million bushel increase in crush, 10 million increase in the export side, and that flowed right into the 2015 numbers. Came in at 475 million bushels versus 500 million last month. Those numbers that we saw in the 2014, the increase in crush and the increase in exports flowed right through. But then in the 15 year, they increased crush another 5 million bushels. And that was probably a little bit tighter than what people thought.
Tell me about the current crop condition across Nebraska first.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you look at Nebraska, corn is basically planted. As we look at emergence, our emergence really is probably a little bit behind what we'd like to see. Probably the problem's over on soybeans. We're 83% planted on beans. Doesn't sound too bad until you compare it to the 5-year average, and we should be 95% planted. We are higher than the national average, currently at 79%. But I think the big concern is as you move into southeast Nebraska, there's definitely some areas down there that there's probably going to be some prevent plant. So not all the acres in Nebraska, Kansas, or Missouri will probably get planted this year. The condition overall is not bad right now, and this is what's kind of strange as we look at soybeans. The condition on soybeans, as we're setting it right now, we're just slightly behind the national average right now, so that's really not too bad.
Let's talk about ethanol. Describe production and use numbers that we're starting to see.
Yeah, the numbers that came out on Wednesday, 992,000 barrels today average. That was a record taking us back to 2014 in December. That's 4.8% ahead of last year. USDA's current numbers for demand is only 1.3%. We only need 843,000 barrels a day average, so the demand is actually ahead of pace. So I'm kind of surprised that USDA lowered the demand when in the last report.
I want to talk about avian influenza. Do you think it's important enough or significant enough to have an impact locally or nationally on corn and soybean meal?
Yeah, on corn and soybeans, and in particular soybean meal as we look at it, I don't think it's important enough nationally to affect the futures prices. However, I do think it's important enough locally to see some impact that will impact basis for both the corn demand and also the soybean meal demand. And we've seen a little bit of that in different areas.
But too soon to quantify just how much it is?
I think it is too soon, yeah. We'll start seeing more on that, but yeah, a little too soon yet.
You guys, where are you at right now with your corn recommendations, and how far sold are you on this 2015 crop?
Yeah, and it depends on our program, but I would say 80% is where you'd like to be on the 2015 sales for new crop, and on the bean side, I'd like to be sold out. On this run that we're having up, or we had up in here, and if we get a little bit more bounce, I'd use that as an opportunity to make sure you're getting caught up on sales.
Finally, at the end of the month, we'll see some numbers from the USDA on grain stocks and acreage. Anything that you're looking for, any big surprises that we might see?
A couple things I think. On the stock side, I don't anticipate seeing any surprises. Over on the acreage side, we think if anything is that individuals may be surprised that maybe the acreage numbers could be a little bit bigger than what's thought on both corn and beans. We don't think the prevent plant concerns will really be built into those numbers yet.